happy to probably be here in the first place today, because I think pretty much after your case, the whole guideline discussion came into place. From the dates, it fits quite well. No? Okay, last presentation before the break, and maybe it's a kind of wrap up, but there might be, maybe we just continue, no, because of the time, is Paul, and I think he has also certain things to this topic.
I will keep it short. Okay, I keep it short, and it's a comment I've already submitted to the Development Bureau, and that is Wallace was lying to you just now in his presentation. It is not that New York has 10 times more cases than Hong Kong for POS. Hong Kong has twice as many as New York. The number of cases that are on the Lands Department, the Buildings Department website is 1,000. There are 1,000 cases of public access and public open space in private developments, not 50. The guidelines are only dealing with the cases of 50 and not with the cases of the 950. Now, if I ask you this morning, which public open space did you use? Did you use any open space this morning, sir?
Yeah.
Which open space did you use?
The corridors.
The corridors. Did you use any public open space?
No.
Did you walk on the pavement today?
On the pavement.
Exactly. That's the public open space we all use every day. It's that public passage through these buildings that we use every day. It's the most important public open space that we have to ourselves. It's not the park. Yes, sure, people are getting older, there's more people who want to sit down in a park area, and that space is important. But that's not the space that we all use as our public open space every day. 950 cases out of the 1,000 are ignored in these guidelines. In fact, if you really look closely at the drawings for New York or the drawings for Singapore, they are dealing exactly with those spaces. Setbacks of buildings, passages through the buildings. In Hong Kong, we ignore them in the guidelines. I don't know why, Gracie may answer it, but I think it has to do with the Buildings Authority, and we don't want to impede on the Buildings Authority's power, but we have to deal with those. We cannot avoid them, and I think the guidelines are, in that sense, entirely misleading. I'll use that term. Okay, I'd like to show you this little picture here. This is, what's the building called? 2228 Queensway, so that's on the corner of, this is Queens Road, and this is the road that comes down Wanham Street. The Petty buildings here. So here's the footbridge that comes across, and on the public passage that's been indicated, the purple, this area is the official public passage, and this is the nice round circle areas here. That's that little planter there, and look at that little sign there. Our population is aging. We have now 1 out of 8 over 65, and by 2030, 1 out of 4 people will be over 65. Why are we not allowing people to sit? Why is this discussion about whether this plan or is not a good plan or not a good plan, why does that not have to go through a design panel? Why does the public not have a right to see this plan before it's agreed with the developer? Allow the public to comment on a plan like this, and they will say, that's a little bit silly. It's not a good plan. If you want to give the developer additional GFA for delivering this level of public access, we as the public don't agree. We think it's a silly idea. If at least that process is available for people to comment, and it's not a dark room between a developer and a bureaucrat to come to a decision, then for sure we all learn what works and what doesn't work. What's fair, what's not fair. But as long as these things get decided in a dark room between the developer and the government, and we have no sight of this before it's decided, then these problems will continue. Suntec Centre. I love this one because Nick Brook and I were trying to walk from outside Suntec Centre here. This is a beautiful new park, to the central waterfront here. So we want to walk just along the street level. Aha! Now where's the pavement? This is building structure. It's very old drawing. It comes out of the land lease. This black line here, this broken black line, is the pavement. So the pavement area is here, and then there's a building here, and then so you have to get off onto the street, back on the pavement, off onto the street. Here is at the bus stop. Here's the elevator that takes you up here. So this is agreed between Lands Department and Suntec. This is approved. Nobody saw this. It's a bureaucrat who's done this with a developer. They didn't want to both not do anything bad, but because you and I haven't seen this and had a chance to comment on this for, say, a 2-week period, because they host it on a website, like, say, the Town Planning Board does, somebody would have said, well, excuse me, where are you going to walk? And then the plan would have been adjusted, and then there would have been no problem. But now we have a problem. And now the government cannot negotiate with Suntec to change that sidewalk slightly here, so that people can actually walk here from the waterfront here to the waterfront here. You now have to go across the road, up in the building, through the shopping mall, go down on the other side. So we can't fix the problem anymore. So unless we solve the situation, unless we include both public passage and public open space in the new process, these stupidities will continue. So that's the point I'd like to make today, that this is critical that we're not addressing this in the public open space, issues. The last thing I like to suggest is who decides. There's got to be a clear process, and I think it was discussed already. We've got to figure out where is that decision. Now there are at this moment 3 different streams of new developments on this kind of level. There is the sustainable building design. Bernard Chan, Sustainable Development Council, sustainable building design. You're looking at things like car parking versus GFA, things underground. What green features do you provide in a building? How much GFA do you get? Yeah, that's kind of like building design issues and how much GFA. It doesn't say how these decisions are going to be made. They very carefully try to draw up these guidelines on what to do. It's very complicated, because suddenly somebody says, oh, but how about this? Oh, but how about that? And then you keep trying to change the guidelines, so you never come to a conclusion. So why not decide on a process instead of fixed guidelines? Public space and private development, and I just say the Greening and Trees Committee, but where does it sit and what's the role and responsibility? Why don't you leave that with within the Town Planning Board? Now, we had a CitySpeak recently on heritage, and one of the conclusions came out of that the Buildings Authority makes all kind of decisions that are not necessarily helping guys that doing heritage buildings. You want to fix a heritage building to make sure that you can have a bar or that you can have an education center, and then you got to do something, and then you go to Buildings Authority and say, excuse me, those are my guidelines. Well, so I can't do that. Well, then how are you going to use that building? So how are you going to break the guidelines? So we said the architect, if he has a conflict with the bureaucrat, then he has to be able to go to a waiver committee and say, excuse me, it's still safe if we do this, but it doesn't meet the guidelines. Can you please approve it? So that the bureaucrat can say, well, the waiver committee has approved this, I'm fine too. We just got a letter back from Jack Chan, who was the Heritage Commission, said that's a constructive idea, we're going to look at it. Now, all those 3 are basically coming down to the same thing. So why can't we have a design panel within the Town Planning Board that deals with these things? Make sure that plans are put up to the public so people can comment on it. So all of you can say, that's a stupid idea, that's a good idea, change that please. Hey, you haven't thought about the neighbors. If that can be taking place, then we can solve this problem. Then it solves also that we don't have to discuss all these guidelines so long. Because the guideline discussion is taking place for so long now, because it's so difficult, because there's always somebody that wants something else. It's much more flexible if you have a process. Somebody makes a good proposal, people look at it and say, that's a great proposal. Everybody agrees, people had a chance to comment, we'll approve it, let's go ahead. So why try to put everything in guidelines? Life changes, context changes. So this is my presentation, thank you.